Welcome back to Module 3. In this module, we're going to be talking about bearing adjustments. So what we've been doing through these modules is we've been drawing this easement, and we've been attempting to get it as spatially accurate as possible, to try and get it to where it's supposed to be with respect to the imagery. And well, the very first easement we drew was the one on the left, and that had a starting point that was from a PLSS shapefile that was supplied by the BLM. Now the easement in the middle, that was the easement we drew in Module 2, whose starting point was from a GPS point from some monument we found in the field. And after redrafting the easement based on the actual location of the PLSS corner that we found in the field there, we noticed that the easement doesn't quite fit within the parcel lines. So in this module, we're going to talk about how to adjust those bearings so that when we do draft it, it fits nicely like you see in the image on the right. First, we need to talk about the concept of basis of bearing. The basis of bearing means the bearing of a line between two monuments that serves as the reference bearing for all other lines on a survey. And for cadastral mapping purposes, a bearing adjustment means determining the difference between the bearing that's stated on the map and the bearing that's stated within your GIS. And before we can digitize lines into a GIS using a legal description or a map, we should adjust the bearings that are stated on the map to conform with our GIS. Now you might be saying, hold on a sec, what do you mean we need to adjust the bearing? I mean, isn't north north? Shouldn't we only have one bearing? And the answer is, well, not really. So we have different coordinate systems. We have different methods of determining what is north. We have different types of equipment, different methods of surveying, and they all have their various degrees of accuracy. Suffice it to say that what true north is based on your GIS in your projected coordinate system may not agree 100% with what true north was decided 100 years ago when your map was made that you're trying to digitize. So you need to adjust that 100-year-old map with your modern GIS. The very first thing you need to do when determining to what extent you need to adjust your bearing is to figure out what the basis of bearing is for the document or the legal description that you're attempting to digitize. So in terms of this easement that we were doing in Module 1 and 2, the record document research finds that the basis of bearing for that easement, as well as all the other documents in that area, happens to be the center line of Minuet Road between Meridian Boulevard and Evening Star Drive, shown as north 21 degrees, 53 minutes, 29 seconds west, per parcel map number 36196, recorded as parcel map book 459. And for a visual reference, this shows you where the easement is located with respect to the portion of Minuet Road of which the basis of bearing for said easement is located. The next step is to pull the parcel map that is referenced by the basis of bearing statement. And here is a close-up of that parcel map referenced on our basis of bearing statement. And we see that area, that portion of the parcel map there shaded as yellow, is the center line that's referenced. And luckily, notice there are two monuments on either side of that center line, and that's important. The next step is to go out into the field with the GPS, locate these monuments, get the GPS coordinates of the monuments, and then bring those coordinates back into the GIS. And after looking at the bearing between our monuments through our GIS, we see that the bearing is northwest 22 degrees, 26 minutes, 15 seconds. However, if we look to the parcel map, we see that that bearing is stated as northwest 21 degrees, 53 minutes, 29 seconds. So there's a difference between what the GIS says the bearing is and what the map says the bearing is. So what we need to do now is we need to find the difference between the bearing as stated in our GIS versus the bearing that's stated in the map. And to do that, we subtract. And we find that the difference between the two bearings is 36 minutes, 46 seconds. And once we know the difference between the bearing that's stated on the map and that same bearing relative to the GIS, we could input that difference into our ArcMap. So what we do is we click on the Editor tab, we go to Options, we click the Units tab, and we input that difference into the Direction Offset box. And we also want to select the Ground to Grid correction box as well. And what that'll do is, once we could then start digitizing using the bearings and distances from the map, and it will adjust those bearings and distances to our GIS. After digitizing our easement, taking into account the bearing adjustment, as well as the previous GPS control point adjustment, we see that the easement fits nicely inside the parcel lines.